Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own, so in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to episode 2 of the Girls Talking Life podcast. I'm so glad you're tuning in. My guest today is my good friend, Abby Miller, and I just love our conversation. Abby and I talk about her struggle to have a healthy pregnancy early on in her marriage. We talk about how God planted a seed in both her heart and her husband's heart to do something more for his kingdom, but they weren't sure what that was going to be. We also talk about how God worked out all the details for them in that process. She tells us how her and her sister love to cook, how they believe in the power of gathering people around a meal, and how they started their blog, Everyday Table. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Abby, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Can you just start off by introducing yourself? Let everybody know who you are.
Yes, my name is Abby Miller, and I currently live in Saline, Michigan, which is just outside of Ann Arbor, about 5 minutes outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I live here with my 3 girls and my husband, Adam. And I have known Johanna since, we were 18, 19?
Yeah, I'm a little older than you, so.
Yeah, I was probably 18 or 19. So in our college years, we became best friends.
That's right. We met in college, and I met you before I met my husband, Joe.
That's right.
You guys happen to be from the same hometown, as is Adam, your husband.
Yes, we all 3 went to high school together. So it's interesting how that worked out, that you got to marry my husband's friend, and it creates a great friendship.
That's right. And we were roommates for a while, too.
That's right. Those were fun years.
Yes,
for sure.
They were. So, Abby, you are parenting 3 girls right now. What are their ages?
Nora is 12, Meredith is 10, and Hattie is 7. So we are in the thick of it.
Fantastic. And your girls are into sports and dance?
They are. Nora is a dancer. She just got pretty serious about it this year. We kind of let the reins loose and let her get into the whole company dance, and I drug my heels on that for as long as I could, just for the sake of time and money and all the things. So yeah, she's get deep into that this year, and it's going well. She's able to handle it with school and everything else. And then Hattie and Meredith both play soccer. So we're also in the middle of fall soccer season.
So Abby, for as long as I've known you, when we met in college, I think you already had a plan. You knew you wanted to get married. You wanted to have kids. And if I remember correctly, you wanted to have a lot of kids. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. That was my main goal, really, was I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And Adam and I dated in high school. So we've known each other for a long, long time. And we went to college together at Kent State, kind of against my parents' wishes to go to the same school away from home. But we did it, and here we are. We've been married for 15 years with 3 girls. So yeah, that was always a dream of mine deep in my heart, that I knew I wanted to be a mom.
How long after school? It wasn't very long after college that you and Adam got married.
Right. We graduated in May of 2003, and we were married in October.
And did you guys start trying to have kids right away?
We waited pretty much right away. We waited about 1.5 to 2 years. And then decided, we'll see what happens and try to have a baby. And I just thought, like everyone else, and I'd get pregnant, have a baby, and life would be grand. And that's not really the course that we were set on.
And what happened in that time?
Well, we got pregnant fairly quickly. And then, a few weeks later, I started to notice things weren't quite right. And of course, you don't know with your first pregnancy. You just kind of assume you're going to feel great. And, the morning sickness or whatnot, would come. But there was a lot of pain in that pregnancy. And it just would continue to get worse. And within a couple weeks, the doctor was able to tell us that the baby was not a viable pregnancy. And I ended up miscarrying that baby. And so then, my dreams at least, seem to be somewhat shot. You just kind of assume, well, I don't know if this is going to work for us. So we got through that miscarriage, waited probably 6 months to try again. We got pregnant again fairly quickly. And same thing. I started cramping, having a lot of pain. And this one I was a little bit further along. And I remember just thinking, here we go again. And unfortunately, we did miscarry that pregnancy as well.
I think I remember running into you probably after the second, and you were just devastated.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was one of the hardest times that I can remember so far in my life, was just that feeling of being so alone. Although I wasn't, it seemed like at the time I was the only one, going through this. I was the only one who had a miscarriage and couldn't get pregnant and start their family right away. And it was just hard. It was a hard time of just watching everybody else thrive and feeling like that might not be for us.
And you didn't have any answers from the doctors as to why that was happening yet?
No, at that time I didn't. That miscarriage, come to find out, is fairly common. So I don't think anybody is really alarmed at first. When you miscarry, they're like, well, that happens, try again. And so we did. But after the second time, I kind of felt like, something might not be right.
Did you go on to lose any more pregnancies?
I did not, because after the second one, we started to seek out some medical advice, went to some infertility doctors, and come to find out, they did diagnose me with a blood disorder, where my body would basically try to reject the pregnancy, and my blood would clot, causing the miscarriage. So, and it's supposed to be maybe a genetic thing. We're not sure. None of my siblings had this trouble. So it was kind of a surprise, thinking, I don't know, I've never heard of this, and what do we need to do about it? So they just watched us really, really closely after they figured out that's what was happening. And as soon as I got pregnant the next time, they would put me on a blood thinner, and I would just give myself blood thinners twice a day. And that worked for Nora and Meredith, which were the next two pregnancies. That worked like a charm. We would do the blood thinners, and then I would go off of them shortly before delivering the babies, and my body would be able to handle it.
You said, that's a common thing for miscarriages, and it absolutely is. But I feel like when you're young, when it's happening to you for the first time, you just don't know that. And even if someone tells you, you just don't really believe it.
Exactly. It's devastating. It really is. And even if you're not young, I know lots of moms now that have dealt with it. And I don't know, I think it's different now. People are more willing to talk about it now, as opposed to maybe, 10, 15 years ago. It just didn't get talked about. And I don't know if people, it's easier to tell now as soon as you're pregnant. So, if you miscarry. And so, there could be the fact that back then you just didn't realize maybe you were even pregnant. But yeah, it's really interesting, because it's just a lonely, lonely place. I don't think even Adam could feel the deep sorrow that I felt during that. There's something in us as moms, I think, that, you connect to that baby as soon as you're pregnant. And that's hard for them because they're not carrying the baby.
Right.
And your body is, producing wild hormones, and you're just going through every emotion under the sun. Yeah. So I think that I went through a little time there where I was just maybe a little bitter, a little angry that, this was happening to me and didn't understand why. Um, but I don't know, looking back now, there's been lots of times where I can speak into other moms going through the same thing. And not that it makes it better or changes it, but it's just knowing that someone else has been there and can relate to exactly what you're feeling.
I had a miscarriage before both of my girls, and I've been able to share that with women.
Mm-hmm.
I actually shared your story with someone as well, just to give different perspectives. Like, this has happened to so many women, and there are different reasons for it, and there are different solutions. But just because it's not happening for you right now doesn't mean it's never going to happen.
Exactly. Yes. And every story is different. And that's one of the really cool things, is that we can come together as moms and as women and share our stories, even though none of them are the same. A lot of us share that common thread.
After college, you moved back to your hometown, the one that we already talked about, where everyone is from but me.
Right.
So you are living in Northwest Ohio. You are pretty involved in your church, and then some other opportunity comes up.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, we moved back to our hometown shortly after we had our first baby, Nora. Our parents are there, and it made sense for us to go there. That was kind of the next step that you do. And yeah, we're just living the dream, I guess. And I have a part-time job. Adam is running his business. And in the fall, I would say about in the fall of 2012 through that next year, we really just started to, our faith just started to grow in a way that I had never known before. I've always been a follower of Jesus, but there's been times in my life where I've just kind of pushed that aside and walked away. Not completely. I've always had that in my spirit, but during those years, we just really, really wanted to live out this faith, and God did a great work in my heart and in Adam's heart separately. I went through a retreat type weekend where I felt God in a way I'd never felt before. And then about a year later, Adam went to a conference called Storyline, which is a Donald Miller conference. I don't even know if they have that anymore. But he went with a pastor from our church and with my brother-in-law. And he came home just like on fire. It was unbelievable. And I felt like God was planting something in each of us, through different means. And it was basically like, we want to live out this faith. We know that God has something else for us in mind. We're not sure. We have no idea what that looks like, but we're just going to pray about this and be open to whatever God wants us to do. And not knowing even if we'd ever get that answer, but just felt restless. I would say it just felt really, really restless to be living where we were living. Not that it was bad. Nothing was bad about it. It was all good. Our family was there, and we loved our church and our pastor. But just knowing that God was going to ask us to step out, and he did. Let's see, we moved in 2016. So in 2015, so it was a couple years after we had felt this major, difference in our hearts. Our pastor announced that he was going to be planting a church in Ann Arbor, and he had asked Adam and I if we wanted to be a part of that. And we knew right then that that's what it was. So we said yes.
That's really cool when you feel something and you know something's about to happen, but then you just have to wait on it. And then when the realization comes out and you're like, that was it. Like, that's such a good feeling.
It is a good feeling. And like I said, I didn't know if it would be that clear to us, but it definitely was. And we were comfortable there, very comfortable. We had this we had our dream home. We thought when we bought that home, we would retire there, and our kids would come back from college to visit us there. And we were asked to let that go and let all the comfort of what we knew go. And it was really cool. And it was also really scary.
Did you know right away that you were going to say yes?
Yeah, I think we did. I could say yes, that we did. Adam had the conversation first with our pastor, and then he came home and told me. And right away, I'm like, of course we're going to go. Because I think God would honor both ways. Like we could honor him by staying, or we could honor him by going. But I knew that there was something in me that said, if you don't try this, then you'll never know. You'll never know what God had for you there. So we just really trusted that what he had for us ahead was going to be good, and it was going to be for him.
And it wasn't just your family. Were several families invited to go from your church?
Right. There were some that's just, we all basically just kind of stepped up and said, you know what, I'm going to be a part of this. My husband had been being mentored by the pastor for some time before that. So I think looking back, there'd been a lot of conversations leading up to this. Maybe not with either of us knowing exactly what that looked like. But yes, we were in right away. And then there were several other families that said, yeah, we're definitely gonna try to do this. So of course everyone had to, sell homes and find jobs and do all those things to actually physically get here. And there were also couples from surrounding towns and a couple that were already up in Michigan that were going to be a part of this church plant. So I think there were maybe 10 couples originally that started meeting.
So that's no small task to sell your house, buy another one, find new jobs.
Exactly. And like I said, we had just purchased this home that was going to be, the home we lived in forever. And in the town where we were from, you're not guaranteed to sell a house, in a matter of weeks, like in the cities. So we thought we would list our home and see how long it took to sell. And if it didn't sell, then we don't go. That's our answer. We'll stay. But the first step for us was trying to sell our home.
And did that work out good for you?
It did. We were surprised to see that it sold within about 2 weeks.
Okay, wow.
Yes. So
I'm sure I knew all this at the time, Abby, but I just can't remember.
Yeah, it's been a few years ago. But yeah, we sold it. A couple that actually had been family friends of mine forever since I've been alive. They were looking for their retirement home basically. And when ours came on the market, they knew that was right for them. And the amazing part was that it sold in the fall, and we wanted to let our girls finish the school year that year before we actually made the move. So they agreed to just let us rent the home back from them and stay there until we were ready to move. It was, the details that God worked out there it was unbelievable.
Wow. That's even more confirmation that you were supposed to go.
Exactly. That's it was really confirmed in my heart that, we don't have to find something to rent. We don't have to move in with anyone. We're not disrupted for the rest of the school year. So yeah, we stayed and just kept living exactly where we were living. And then we were able to work out the rest of the details to actually make the move.
So I have shared with you that one of the reasons Joe and I decided to move to Columbus was to be part of a church that our friends had planted.
That's right.
It wasn't a new plant. It was 2 years into their church, but we wanted to come and be a part of it. And that was a lot of work. It was a small church, and, we needed to do a lot of things to keep it running.
Yes, it's a lot of work.
What does planning a church from the very beginning look like?
Well, it just means that, you don't have the infrastructure set to make all the things run. So it started out, we met in someone's living room for the first probably 6 months. We would all kind of in a central location gather and just talk about our vision and our values, and our pastor would, give us scripture and books to read. And just, it was a really sweet time for all of us, because that group, we came together not knowing each other, most of us. I mean, some of us that came from the same town did, but most of us had never met each other before. And we came together, and by the time we all actually made the move up here, it was like, it really did feel like family. And we were coming up here for one common goal. And, we loved each other's kids. We were sharing everything about our lives. And really the goal during that time was to just gather as a family and share testimonies, share stories, and just encourage each other through all the steps that needed to happen. And then we slowly started to move as people found jobs and found homes, and school situations. We slowly started to move up here. And then we started to meet in another church. They would rent space to us on Saturday night. So we started meeting there for the first part. And then we eventually found somewhere that would run us on Sunday morning. And then we outgrew that space fairly quickly. I think we were only there maybe for a year. And now we're running from another school in Ann Arbor on Sunday mornings. So we're in our third location, which is encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's awesome being a part of the journey. And, none of us know where that's going to take us, but we're just letting God do that work. And as long as he says to move forward, we're going to keep moving forward.
Going back to what you said about that being a sweet time, just getting to know everybody and sharing your story and having that really small church body just move together as a family. I know what you mean. I've experienced that. And I just would encourage anybody who hasn't experienced that type of community to really try to get into some kind of small group that is fostering that. I mean, it's really, I would say it's life-changing to just experience that with a group of people.
Yes, I would agree. It's hard at first to get, involved in a group that you don't know anybody, or you may know a few people, but it's a process of letting down your guard. And, what I've experienced is that it's definitely a judgment-free zone, that we're all there because God put us there. And yeah, it is life-changing. It becomes these people that truly are your family. It's like you compared it to a home group, and that's kind of what it felt like a really awesome home group.
So what is your capacity with the church right now?
Adam, well, my husband Adam runs a business. So our kind of, I guess, job going into it was managing that side of it, the money coming in, recording all the expenses and things like that. So we're kind of a behind the scenes type of volunteer, I guess you could say. So we do a lot of that behind the scenes. But obviously on a Sunday morning, we don't have a permanent location. So everything gets set up, everything gets torn down. We make coffee for people. Yeah, we help when the nursery needs help. We help in there. When we teach the elementary kids once a month to get involved in that area. We have kids in that age group, so we want to be involved in that. But yeah, it's been awesome to watch who God has brought in the doors and has added to the family. And we're located somewhat close to the University of Michigan. So we do have a lot of college students that come in, which is really awesome to see.
That is. And it sounds like your experience is similar to mine. With the small church, there's just lots of jobs and you do them all. You do what needs done.
Exactly. Yes. And you just have to know, you have to have the mindset that you're there to serve God and not to serve, yourself, because
Absolutely.
you, you have to show up and do the job.
Right. With the right attitude.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned that several families moved there, and one of those families was your sister's family, her and her husband, and then her 5 children.
That's right.
So somewhere along the lines of moving and starting a church, you guys also decided to start a food blog.
That's right.
How did that come about? How did that fit into the mix?
Well, I don't know. This has been a long time coming, I feel like, for us. Um, my sister and I, there's 7 years between us, so we weren't necessarily close growing up. But as soon as I started to have a family, we got super close, and we've just grown together through the years. And it ended up that we were both planting this church together in Michigan. And it's just been, I mean, that in itself has been amazing, just to be able to walk through this with them and have our kids be near theirs. And we live in different little towns, but we're only about 15 minutes apart. And April and I have always loved to cook, and we started to cook together. I guess when we were living back in Ohio, we would cook, I don't know, do some things for the church. We would provide food, or there were a couple of times when speakers would come in and, we'd provide their food. And it was just really an area that we both love to serve in. I would say providing food around the table for people is one of the best things that I do, because I just feel like food speaks to everyone, but it breaks down walls in a way that I don't think anything else does. If you can gather around a plate of food or table, it's just, it's more of an intimate experience.
I completely agree.
Yes. So anyways, we would start cooking for these little groups. And then we were asked to go cook for a group in Montana. Our pastor's wife actually runs a website, and she was having this retreat in Montana for the people that contribute to her blog. And so she asked us to come along and make the food. And that really sparked something in both of us. At first we were like, oh, I don't know if we can actually pull this off, but we did pull it off. And, God just opened that door, I feel like, and just placed that desire in our heart to just, I don't know, serve people in that way. So the idea came about for us to start this blog. We didn't even know what it would be, but just to share our story, basically, of why we love to cook, and what we believe in the value and the importance of that, of gathering people around a table. And not that it has to be anything super fancy or flashy, but just the simple act of providing, a small meal for people to gather around makes a huge difference. And so our goal really was to help people do that, to say, here's something that you can make on a random weeknight and gather your family around the table, or encourage people to, invite their neighbors in and get to know them in that way.
Where do you think this love of cooking came from? Is it something that you did at home with your mom? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, my family has always cooked. My grandma loved to cook, and she passed that along to her kids and to my mom. And so my family has always gathered around food. We have, big holidays with tons and tons of food, and everyone would be there. And it was just really, really sweet memories of that. We weren't really one of those families that would go, like buy the things at the store and set them out. They were always like making things homemade, and it was just really a fun thing to do for us. So I think it started there. I was just always around that. And when I started to have my own family, that's something I definitely wanted to do, was cook and teach my girls to cook, and, not always provide a homemade meal on the table, but allow them to be involved in the process and try different foods and be exposed to all things food.
So I follow you, Everyday Table, on Instagram, and your feed is just beautiful, mouth-watering.
Well, thank you.
I have made some of your recipes. I actually made a pork tenderloin recipe twice now. Once just to
Awesome.
try it, and then once we used it for a celebration. It was a birthday celebration here this summer.
Oh, you did? Oh, I
It
love
was
that.
fabulous. So thank you for the recipe and for your just encouragement for people, try this recipe, share it with your family, gather around the table. I love that message.
Yes, thank you. I love it too. It's just, and that's one of my favorite recipes, by the way. That's definitely a go-to for us.
I can
Um,
see why.
yeah. But even with that, I just think that, we had the idea probably a couple years ago, and we both have other jobs. We both have families. We're both involved in the church, and we have a lot of other things going on. But just that little thing that God planted in both of us that we love to do, I feel like it honors Him when we do it because of the reason that we're doing it, and just allowing Him to let that grow. Because it's easy to say, well, I definitely don't have time for that. That's going to have to wait, or, it's not the right season of life or whatnot. And just allowing that slow growth, having permission for that, because, we didn't start the blog 2 years ago when we had the idea. We allowed it to be slow, and we prayed about it and sought out advice from, people that had blogs up and running, because we know that that's a lot of work too. But yeah, I'm just excited to see, who it might reach, really, because the goal is just to reach people, encourage them in a way that, that we feel like God has gifted us. And so I hope that's what it does.
And I feel really similar with this podcast. I had my idea a few years ago. I had a desire to do this, and you feel like you're moving so slowly because there are so many pieces that need to come together, and the thinking through things and the praying about it and receiving confirmation that, yes, I am supposed to move forward with this. And so I can completely relate to the slow steps to get something started, but continuing
Exactly.
to do it, even though you really don't have time for it, or it doesn't quite make sense, or just any of those reasons that you could give to stop or not to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's so key, because there's so many reasons to not do it. And it's not like we're busting out posts, every day of the week. We're not, because like you said, it's slow growth. And right now it's exactly what we can be doing. But yeah, I feel like we received confirmation along the way, and we've had a couple more opportunities to cook for groups, and, groups of women really in particular. And just, it's just so rewarding doing that. And I just love it. So I hope that, we can just continue to do that more in a virtual way. I always can't be in front of people serving food for groups, but this is a way for me to do that, but still be, at home, being a mom and being a wife.
So you've actually had the chance to travel to Idaho for 2 years
Yes.
now. That's the other group that you're talking about.
And actually, we made this connection through you. So we owe you thanks for that. Because we found these two women, and they started this podcast called the Open Door Sisterhood. And they basically mentor some women throughout the year and help them to grow in spiritual and personal and professional ways. But they have a retreat every year that they host in Idaho, and they were looking for chefs for their retreat. So April and I applied online to be their chefs, and that was 2 years ago. And we got hired to do the job, and we went out to Idaho, and then we just got back from our second time out there a few weeks ago. And it's been an awesome experience. And there is no way in the world that I should have been out there in Idaho cooking for these amazing women, except for that God opened that door. And it's just, I don't know, it's amazing.
I love that. I love Alex and Krista.
Yes, they are the best.
And I love how that all came together for you and April to be there. And
Yes, we actually just got off the phone with them. We had a call with them earlier today to kind of recap this last retreat. And yeah, they're just, I mean, the most encouraging people I have probably ever known. So it's been a real blessing to be involved with them in that small way.
So, what are your hopes for the future for your catering for Everyday Table?
Um, I don't even know if I can answer that question. The goal really is to help people feel like they can put food on the table during the week instead of, even if it's just 1 or 2 nights, like instead of ordering a pizza or whatever, going through the drive-through, try this recipe and just really equip women to do that. And I think that just creates a space for conversation with your kids, conversation with your spouse. And if you can just invite, one neighbor over a month and say, hey, come over and I'm going to cook the soup and you can just have dinner with us. It doesn't have to be something super fancy. But the times that we have done that, and I know that's so hard because everyone has all the things to do. But the times that we have done that have been, rewarding tenfold. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money or a lot of prep work. But I just think that's kind of a dying thing, that people don't open their doors. And that's something that April and I both are pretty passionate about. And I think this might be a way just to help people do that, just to give them a simple idea of, this is a meal you can cook that's not going to be a million ingredients and super hard. So whether it's with, their own family or whether it comes to a point where you're inviting other people in once in a while, I think that would be the goal, just to give a variety of ideas and encouragement in that way.
And you can find Abby and her sister April on Instagram and their beautiful feed at everyday.table. And their website is everydaytable.org. Abby, let's talk about your favorite 5 things.
Okay. Well, I had a hard time paring these down, just so you know.
You have a lot of favorites.
I do. Yes. Well, I know one of mine, my first one is the same as yours, I think. And it's fairly new to me, but you might have been doing it for a while. And it's my morning green smoothie.
Yes.
And it's not that it's my favorite because it tastes amazing, but it's my favorite because it makes me feel good.
What is your smoothie recipe? Is it the same every time?
It is. Yeah. I use a protein powder that I find at Whole Foods, and it's just like vanilla flavor. So I put that in it, and I put either like frozen spinach or frozen kale or fresh, whatever I have on hand. And I like the Vital Proteins collagen. So I put a scoop of that in, and I put in some chia seeds and almond milk and almond butter.
That is a totally different recipe than mine, and it sounds very good.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so what's yours?
So mine is spinach, usually apples or whatever fruit I have on hand. Sometimes I have to go to the freezer for frozen mango or frozen pineapple or peaches.
Okay.
And then lemon.
Ooh.
And you can also throw in parsley or cilantro, just if you have some extra, from what you were cooking that week.
Mm-hmm.
And a banana.
Yeah. I do put a banana in mine sometimes too. I don't always, but yeah, I love it because it's what I drink every morning now. And Adam actually drinks them too. And it just feels like we're making a healthy choice.
I think that's important. It's like the first thing that goes into your body.
Exactly.
For the day.
I can't say that it stays that way for the rest of the day, but yep. Some days.
You start out on a good note.
Exactly.
All right. What's number 2?
Number 2 is grocery pickup.
Oh.
Which I didn't do for a long time, but once I started doing it, I'm kind of hooked. And we have several that do it in my area. And some of them are super quick turnaround. So like, that first week of school when I didn't realize I needed to send in a snack to first grade, I'm online the night before getting the snacks to send in and whatever else we're out of. And then I can drive through like early in the morning and get the stuff, and they bring it out to my car and it's done. So I wouldn't say I use it for all my grocery shopping, but I definitely use it, at least a couple times a month when I just need like a big round of the staples and I don't feel like going through the store. So
the person who gets your order ready, do they do a good job of picking out what you need?
So far I've had good luck.
Okay.
And that I don't like to buy a lot of produce or, like meat, but I have gotten like bananas and lettuce and things like that, and they've been fine.
Okay. We've done it on vacation just one time and they delivered it to us.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
They still pick it out for you.
So,
maybe I'll have to give it another try.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty convenient for those times when you're like, oh, I just need all this stuff and I don't want to make a big trip to the store. So
how about number 3?
Okay. So number 3, I have my new favorite online shopping place, and it's called Carly Jean Los Angeles. Have you heard of it?
I don't know about this.
Okay. Well, I will warn you because I know you're going to love it too.
I bet.
If you follow them on Instagram, which they put tons and tons of stories up, and they like try on all their clothes on the stories so you can see exactly how they're fitting people and what the sizing is like. But I ordered from them probably, I don't know, last spring, the first time, and I was hooked. It's just, I don't know. It's something, it's like, so it's CJLA, Carly Jean Los Angeles. And you can find their website, but the clothing is all so comfortable, but it's so cute. Like tops and dresses, and right now they have like super cute sweaters out, of course. And I've gotten jeans from there. They're super stretchy and everything is just comfortable, and it's not super pricey.
You are the person that turned me on to Stitch Fix, so I'm sure I'll love this too.
Yes, this is my new go-to for sure.
Okay, and it's time for fall and winter shopping, so I'm going to check that out.
Yes, they have a whole line of basics that I just love because there's nothing better than like a great t-shirt that you're just going to hang on to. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So if you're going to get something, at least get a few of their basics.
Okay. I will be looking at that later. What are your other favorites?
My number 4 is also in the clothing realm, and it's my Lada clogs. And I've been wearing them nonstop this fall.
Oh, I think I saw a picture and someone said, I still love your shoes.
Oh, yes.
And I think those were your clogs, weren't they?
Yeah. And that was probably from like last spring or summer. But yes, I splurged and bought a pair of them. I've been eyeing them for a long time. And I finally bought a pair. And I think it was last year on my birthday in April. And I have not regretted it. They're really great. So definitely check those out.
Okay.
And my number 5 is just my workout, because without that, I just don't feel like myself. So that's something that is pretty important to me and that I always make time for.
Do you have something specific that you're doing right now?
I do. I'm more of like a go to a class type person because I need the accountability to be there and to show up. So there's a gym in my town that Adam and I both joined, and they have an early class for me, which works for my schedule because I like to go early before anyone else is up. So it's like a lot of strength, but also cardio mixed in.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it is great.
A go to the gym type person. I can't do the going.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I work out at home, but I love the accountability that you're talking about.
Yes. I need that. I miss that. If I don't go, it's like I missed my group, So, and it's not, I don't go every day, but I go 3 to 4 times a week, and it just makes me feel better. It helps clear my mind and gets me settled for the day.
I feel like whether it's a hard workout or a light workout, it just makes a difference on how you feel overall.
It does. It makes a huge difference. So yeah, those are my top 5.
Thank you. Those are great.
You're welcome.
We'll see about making some of those my favorites too.
Yes.
So Abby, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. It's been really fun to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
I feel like you are a girl who has said yes to some hard things and to some fun things. And I just appreciate you sharing your story. I think other people need to hear what it looks like to say yes to what you're being asked and just following what God has for you.
Yes, just go for it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks for listening to my conversation with Abby. During our talk, we talked about community and getting connected with a church family or a small group. And I just wanted to say it can be such a meaningful experience, but the thing about community is that it can't be forced. It can take time to get to the point where you're really doing life together. So if you're looking for that, don't give up if it doesn't happen right away, or if it doesn't happen with the first group you try. Abby and I also talked about miscarriages and how the experience of having them has allowed us to speak into the lives of other women. Abby and I were both able to go on to have healthy pregnancies, and I just want to acknowledge that that's not the story for every woman. Infertility or whatever situation you're in where you're not able to build the family the way you want to, that can be heartbreaking, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. You can connect with Abby and her sister April on Instagram at everyday.table. You can also find them on their website, everydaytable.org. For everything we talked about in this episode, you can see the show notes at girlstalkinglife.com, and that'll also include all the links to Abby's favorites. Next week, Shala Johnson joins me for episode 3. She is a West Coast girl living in Central Ohio with her husband Rich and their 4 children. She and I discuss the logistics of having 4 kids, because I can't even imagine, and how her husband sets aside time to disciple their boys. Shala talks about her and Rich's desire for diversity and how they came to plant a multi-ethnic church that reflects God's kingdom. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes to have the show delivered right to your phone each week. You can also sign up for the Girls Talking Life newsletter on our website, girlstalkinglife.com. The newsletter is going to let you know what's going on here, plus bring you the show notes for each episode right to your inbox. When you sign up, you're also going to get some free, downloadable conversation cards so you can share your stories and start conversations with the girls in your life. Thanks for tuning in.